Scientific and medical communications is kind of a unique thing in PR and marketing, particularly because you're taking something that is so complex and often so nuanced in the message and trying to communicate that to oftentimes an audience that has a completely different lexicon and probably no understanding of the details or context in which the data is coming from. So it's something that I think takes a lot of practice. It's difficult to get right, and yet that means that we all have to try extra hard to do that. So in getting started, thinking about publication, I've found faculty and investigators to be all over the map in terms of their view about the role of public relations and publicity around their science. Very often I get the comment, I published in peer review, that's the audience that I want to reach, why should I bother with a press release? And I think one of the things to think about is, one, the journals these days are competing very heavily for readers, and they're doing press releases about the research that is published there. There are smart reporters that are out there reading the journals themselves, writing stories, whether or not there's a press release. And oftentimes, even if you don't feel engaged necessarily, sometimes your communications offices will feel that what you've done is really important and is something that they want to promote to show off how great the research institution or medical institution is. So when you think about all of those things happening, I think it's, to everyone's benefit, and we'll get to this, to participate in the process and to really be the shepherd of making sure that that message is crafted in a way that's accurate and to participate in helping what your science is get translated accurately for a lot of different audiences who may be consuming the information on the other side. Particularly when you're communicating to multiple audiences, it's important to think about, one, what is that audience that you're trying to reach? How do we reach those people? What is the language that we need to use? How might your messages or specific words be interpreted differently by people who don't have the same scientific understanding and background as yourselves? Definitely there are things that can go wrong, but I think by being here, you're showing that you're invested in trying to do it right, which is great. So what can go wrong? I'm going to start off with the bad and we can focus on the good for the rest of the morning. Well, I think one of the things, and particularly when it comes to medical research and communicating things about treatments that may be very early stage today but have the potential to have a huge impact on patients, you can really raise the hopes of people that might not have that same nuanced understanding of when there's a breakthrough, how long it's going to take for that breakthrough to reach them. STAT is a new online-based publication that was launched by the Boston Globe in November. It's solely dedicated to telling the news of the life science, content ranging all the way from what's happening. There's a beat that covers what's happening in the general Longwood and biomedical area. What's happening with biotech companies in Kendall Square, what's happening on the healthcare side, the public health side. It's hugely expansive, and they've hired a lot of really top-notch reporters to cover their content. So two of the reporters that they've brought on board write a column called the Watchdog column. This is Ivan Aransky and Adam Marcus. They also run a blog called Retraction Watch, which is meant to look at I think integrity of scientific communication and research and publications, and kind of what happens. Why are so many papers being retracted these days, and what can we do to fix the problem? And they feel like their role by kind of calling out and dissecting, not necessarily, sometimes it's the journals, sometimes it's the research, sometimes things just change in terms of understanding. But they wrote about in STAT an article called Press Releases Stink, and why does this matter? And when I saw that, as somebody who has dedicated their profession to helping companies and researchers write press releases. I had to read it. And it talks about this institution in Phoenix called the Translational Genomics Research Institute. As far as I knew before this, fairly decent reputation, a lot of top-notch oncology professionals working there, but their institution put out a press release about a new treatment for glioblastoma multiforme. And they highlighted in this press release that there was a breakthrough treatment for this disease that really has no good approaches right now. And that this treatment was FDA approved, which is, really, really exciting if you took that at face value. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And a patient with glioblastoma saw the press release directly and contacted the institution and said, how do I get this? I've been recently diagnosed, I want to get treated. And the institution had to admit, well, it was only approved for use in dogs. And it was heartbreaking to the patient and his entire family, who really had their hopes raised. And I think the institution was looking to kind of highlight what they thought was exciting and important, and left out some, whether intentionally or unintentionally, to draw attention to that paper and that press release, left out some, what might seem like a minor detail that just, again, devastated, a person's world when they thought that there was something on the horizon for them. So, the fallout here is that, when things like this are written about in the popular press, it really calls all PR into question. That wasn't the only case of something like this that this story highlighted. And so it really makes you think about, okay, like, not everybody is doing it correctly. It just raises the bar to want to do it better for me. And again, I think having people who really care about getting this right, it's going to turn the tide.